couple weeks ago, I made a video titled The Rise and Fall of Crumbl. In this video, I broke down why I think that the way Crumbl is currently operating their company is unsustainable for multiple reasons. However, after I posted this video, I realized that there is a much deeper issue with Crumbl than I initially realized. From very concerning child labor law violations found by the US Department of Labor, to lawsuits claiming that Crumbl is purposefully deceiving customers as to how many calories is in their cookies, I found enough information after my first video where I felt like I needed to make a second video to go over everything that I missed in my first one and that I learned after I posted it. So here we are. By the way, this video is sponsored by Incogni, but we'll talk more about them later. So after I posted my initial video, I immediately received hundreds of comments detailing terrible experiences working for Crumbl, including some alleging illegal labor practices. I then dug deeper and found that Crumbl has an entire section of their Wikipedia dedicated to their labor law violations. You see, in 2022, the US Department of Labor fined Crumbl franchise owners $58,000 after they found child labor violations affecting 46 minor workers across 11 different locations, many of whom were 14 or 15 years old. These violations included these minors working long and or later hours than they're legally permitted to, as well as operating potentially dangerous machinery and ovens. After this came out, Crumbl made a statement saying they are, quote, committed to a safe, welcoming work environment for all of our franchisees and their employees. We take any violation of federal labor laws very seriously. We are deeply disappointed to learn that a small number of our franchise locations were found to be in violation of these laws. And while it's true that these violations were found at only 11 out of the 1,000 plus locations, and Crumbl seems to be insisting that it's not a company-wide issue, there's also an undeniable amount of people online speaking out detailing the exact same type of violations that were only found at a, quote, small number of locations. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people in my comment section on my last video were detailing very similar experiences to this. For example, a user in my comments on my last video said this: I worked at Crumbl in 2021. Fucking awful work environment. Making 16-year-olds close the store alone at midnight, which is illegal in my state. Another commenter said, I worked at Crumbl last year. Absolutely terrible work environment. My shift leaders were all inexperienced 16-year-olds who were overworked as well as me. Also, they fired me through an email. My sister used to work for them before she switched jobs and landed at Little Caesars. She has told me and my family that her shifts were 6 hours or longer, and her, quote, breaks were consisted of maybe 15 seconds to get a drink of water. Mind you, she was a minor at the time. I worked at Crumbl in 2022, and the pay was $8 an hour in Texas. They claimed that there was more like $10 an hour with tips, but that was far from the truth. I was overworked and underpaid, so I left after 6 months. We also only got a 5-minute break during our shifts, and for those who worked more than 6 hours, never got a lunch break. Finally, an excuse to rant about one of the worst jobs I've ever had. Oh my god. I worked at Crumbl and it was a nightmare. Poor management, understaffing, and awful communication plagued the store the whole time I was there. They regularly scheduled times where there were no managers or leads for hours at a time, and I routinely stayed long after my shift was over so that a 16-year-old wouldn't be working alone. I had a medical issue due to stress and had to go to the hospital on the job, and they docked me attendance points despite sending proof that I was again in the hospital. Also, if you have a peanut allergy, do not get any cookies during the weeks when they have peanut cookies. Everything is cross-contaminated from the pans to the spatulas to the tables. Okay, all of that is a little bit concerning, not gonna lie. Be careful, peanut allergy people. Must suck, I'm sorry. And this is far from every comment on my last video detailing their experiences working there, but they all echo basically the exact same sentiment. Now, obviously we can't take YouTube comments as 100% fact, but seeing as so many people spoke out individually for seemingly no self-serving reason, all saying more or less the exact same thing, that it was a bad work environment, there was little to no breaks, the pay was misleading, they were underpaid and overworked. Like, so many people are saying this that to a point, there's gotta be some truth to it, right? Allegedly. I don't know. It's pretty compelling to me anyways. Even if we assume that the illegal practices that were alleged in my comment section are false, it still seems to me that Crumbl does not do a good job at ensuring their franchises are making an environment where the employees feel comfortable and represented. They probably don't have a good system for employees to make complaints if they feel mistreated. And that leads to a widely reported terrible work environment. After I was made aware of these massive problems, I had some questions. So I made a post seeking for Crumbl employees interested in the interview, and I managed to get in touch with a couple former Crumbl employees that saw my initial video, and they were willing to share their experiences for this video. And they had some very interesting things to say. But before we can get into that, let's take a quick break to thank the sponsor of today's video, Incogni. When you use the internet, nearly every website you use exploits you by stealing and selling your data. They hand it over to data brokers without your consent, making your data publicly available for anybody to access. Now, thankfully, you can go through these websites and submit requests to get your data removed, but that takes forever to do by yourself. You would have to go through every single data broker site and manually fill out request remove forms or whatever. It is a long, grueling, painful process just to get your sensitive data off of the internet. Thankfully, Incogni will make that process a million times easier for you. By giving Incogni your personal information, they will automatically go through these sites and request your data be removed on behalf of you without you lifting a finger. They've personally removed my information from almost 300 sites, saving me an estimated 221 hours of doing it all manually. That's more than 9 days that I saved of my life doing this tedious bull crap. I don't think I can cuss in this brand deal. Just so I wouldn't have my information publicly out there. And if you're thinking, oh, my data probably isn't out there, it is. Okay, it is, trust me. Incogni is genuinely such a massive time saver that makes me feel so much more confident when using the internet. If you want to give Incogni a try, then go to incogni.com/Dakota or click the top link in the description and make sure you use code Dakota because you can get 60% off the annual plan. Thank you again to Incogni for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to Crumbl. So like I was saying before the break, which is more of a break than Crumbl employees get apparently, I managed to get a couple former employees from Crumbl to be willing to do an interview for this video. And I did make sure to verify that they actually worked there. They both wanted to stay anonymous. Ex-employee number 1 felt more comfortable just telling me their experience over email, but ex-employee number 2 was willing to do a call.
I started working at Crumbl when I was 16.
All right, what was your overall experience working for Crumbl?
So when it came to working with other people, it was great. Like my coworkers were usually very nice and willing to help each other out. There was some drama, but I feel like that's pretty normal. I feel that after you got through the management, though, that's where the problems were.
Okay, gotcha. And what was like the main reason you wanted to reach out for this interview?
How they tend to I don't want to use this terminology, but I feel like it's appropriate. They really do prey on young kids, especially girls who don't really know much about the workforce and how it's supposed to work. And they definitely take advantage of that when it comes to your salary and how they treat you. And there was just some creepy things that went on there.
Do you have any examples?
Well, the first one was when they interview you, they told us that we would be paid around $11 an hour, and in truth we were only paid minimum wage, which is $7.25. Another example is when we were at work, we had security cameras, and those cameras I know that people usually use in case there's an incident or something like that, so they can go back and check. But what the owners would do is they would watch us all day every day through the cameras. And if we weren't doing something that they, I guess, liked, they would call us and yell at us about it.
Oh no.
And yeah.
Okay, so I've found a lot of people online, and also just there's been convicted cases of minors being in illegal labor conditions. For example, working late past the legal limit, or working long hours, or operating dangerous machinery and ovens and things like that, which is very questionable. Would you say that in your time there, did you see any of this? Did you experience any of this, or was your location pretty good at being mindful about the laws?
Oh, it's actually very funny that you mentioned that, because I went to a driving school before I got my license, and it was taught by police officers. And when I mentioned where I was working, he had told me that my location had gotten in trouble for having minors working way too late. What was really bad about that is the area we were in was very dangerous, especially if you're young and closing alone. And we had several incidents there, and when it came to the machinery, they had gotten in trouble for people under the age of 18 using things like the mixers. I myself, they asked me to use it once, and I was like, well, isn't that against the law? And they were like, well, it's fine. Like, I'm like,
oh gosh.
don't.
So how are the breaks? Because I've heard they don't really give breaks.
Yes, that's true. The law here is if you are under the age of 18, you have to have like a 30-minute break after 5 or 6 hours. I can't remember which one. They did not always do that. And then the law got changed, and it had to be anyone, like 18, older or younger. You had to take a break for 30 minutes, and especially with the shift leads, like they did not allow them to take breaks at all.
Oh wow.
It was very hard, especially if you were working 8 or 9 hours. The other thing is there was like no place to sit down to, like when you had a break. There was not a break room, and so we were on our feet like the whole time we were working. I remember I broke my foot and I was there, and if I sat down, like I was in trouble.
Oh my gosh. What you're describing to me is what I've seen like all over my comment section, all over like Reddit and places like that. There's a lot of people saying the exact same thing. So you're definitely not alone. It seems like it's not unique to your location. It's a pretty company-wide issue.
It is.
So while I'm no lawyer and I'm 100% not making any concrete accusations against Crumbl, I do personally think, from what I've heard from many former and current Crumbl employees at this point, there is, in my opinion, allegedly, possibly, based on my information, my opinion is, it's possible that there is a more company-wide issue than Crumbl would like you to think in regards to potentially dangerous conditions and or disregard for minor workers and the labor laws that are in place to protect them. Just saying. Not a concrete thing. Not a concrete thing, okay? Don't sue me, Crumbl. Now, even if we forget about the alleged child labor violations, and we assume that everyone is following the labor laws, there is no doubt in my mind that there is a company-wide issue in regards to cultivating a toxic work environment. Now, I'm sure there are people out there who work or worked at Crumbl and absolutely love it. And if you're watching this video and that's you, then I would love to hear your experience in the comments down below. However, from what I've heard, even people who explained to me that the management was super nice, which I heard multiple times, still said that the way the company was structured made them feel very stressed out with very little breaks and no representation or no way to actually enact change. And even when breaks aren't legally required to be given, when these employees are, 16, 18, whatever years old, and they're working on their feet for 6+ hours, and you're not giving them any breaks because you don't legally have to, even if that's legal, it's not gonna make people excited to go to work, you know what I mean? It's going to make people dread their job. And I already know that there's gonna be a bunch of comments on this video that are like, oh brother, you're just decorating a cookie. Goodness gracious, how about you just admit you're a spoiled little brat that doesn't want to work hard? And don't get me wrong, I understand that, your experience or your favorite Fox News host or whatever told you this and you believe it, and that's okay. You can think what you want to. But look, I believe that employees working at a company which represent that company, and at the end of the day, without them, the company wouldn't be operating, I believe those employees should be treated and paid fairly. And when I see an environment that is facilitating people being uncomfortable because they are being overworked and underpaid and they have no way to express and represent their concerns and actually change something about it, it makes me frustrated, okay? And I feel like there's a totally valid way of thinking about it. Another thing that makes me frustrated is food that is purposefully misrepresenting how many calories are in it. Oh, this pisses me off. As someone who has been tracking my calories that I consume on MyFitnessPal for years at this point, it genuinely makes me so mad when I'm like, oh, it says 80 calories, and then I eat the bag of chips or whatever, and then I go to track it, and I'm like, wait a minute, how does this tiny little Lay's bag of chips have 47 servings in it? But like, for real, can we talk about how even Campbell's soup cans are lying to us about how many calories are in it? Like, brother, how is there 2.5 servings in this can of chicken noodle soup? Are you crazy? Who made that? Who decided to do that? That's ridiculous. If you give me a can of soup, actually, fuck, I had some chicken and rice soup last night, as a matter of fact. I'm eating that whole fucking can. I'm eating the whole can. What are you talking about? The instructions on the back, they tell you to pour the whole can in and then pour another can of water in. They want you to eat the whole can. There's literally no reason for them to say it's 2.5 servings other than to make you think it's only 80 calories, which is absurd. What are you supposed to do? Make an entire thing of soup and then eat. Oh, I'm going to eat only half a cup and then I'm going to put it away and then do that 2.5 times? No, you're not. Who's doing that? That's ridiculous. That's fucking stupid. Anyways, I'm sorry. I was thinking about it last night. It made me really mad. The reason I bring this up is because, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Crumbl actually got sued because they were, quote, grossly misrepresenting the number of calories in their product. The 33-page first amended complaint says the gourmet cookie seller, reportedly the fastest growing dessert retailer nationwide, highlights the fact that its cookies can be enjoyed guilt-free while failing to disclose that each cookie, quote, contains a significantly higher calorie content than the company lets on. Essentially, Crumbl has deprived consumers of the ability to make informed decisions about their calorie intake. According to the lawsuit, Crumbl carries out this deception by claiming publicly that the calorie content of its cookies varies depending on serving size and byproduct. However, the company does not reveal, and in fact takes pains to deliberately conceal, that a single cookie can amount to as many as 4 servings. If you don't believe me, here is a picture of their menu. As you can see, it lists the chocolate chip cookie as 170 calories with a tiny little asterisk right next to it. And the reason that asterisk is there is because they legally have to tell you, at least in like the small fine print at the very bottom that probably blends in with the background, that that's just 1 serving. And there's like multiple servings in every cookie. So that 170 calories for that chocolate chip cookie is actually more like 720 calories for the entire cookie. That is just so dishonest. There's no reason to not say per serving next to that calorie listing or just display the full calorie content of the cookie, other than to just manipulate people into thinking they're not eating as much as they are. Now, we've yet to see the results of this lawsuit, but what we do know is that Crumbl has not changed their ways yet. I went there a couple weeks ago for my first video when I went to go get cookies and try them. And while I didn't know about this lawsuit and situation, so I didn't try to get a shot of the menu, I did find a still where you could see the menu. And in this screenshot, you can see that the cowboy cookie is marked as 210 calories, which when I looked it up is actually more like 720 calories for the entire cookie. So they're still doing it. Great. Awesome. Love that. Now, of course, I'm a professional yapper, okay? I'm not a professional lawyer or whatever. So I couldn't tell you who will win this lawsuit or whether or not the way they were doing that was illegal, regardless of how shady and manipulative it is. But according to the lawsuit, Crumbl has violated the FDA's on-menu calorie disclosure requirements for retail food establishments with 20 or more locations. In doing so, the suit alleges that Crumbl has created a false impression among consumers that its cookies are low in calories, when in reality, they contain enormous amounts of calories, fats, cholesterol, and sugar. So it doesn't look too hot for Crumbl at the moment. You could say things are crumbling.
Ooh, you suck!
I'm sorry. I know. Everyone hated that last time. I'm so sorry. But regardless of what happens with this lawsuit, I really respect the people who are sitting there and trying to fight it and trying to make Crumbl more accountable for being a little bit more transparent here. And I really wish them luck, okay? I really do. The underlying issues we discussed in this video are not unique to Crumbl by any means. Every food company seemingly tries to do everything in their power to lie to you about how healthy their product really is. Or even if they're not claiming that it's healthy, they're trying to claim that it's less bad than the competition, whatever. It's a shady and deliberately manipulative practice. But unfortunately, it's everywhere. There's like no avoiding it. A lot of companies also like to hire a large amount of young and minor workers because they don't know their rights as an employee. 15-year-olds getting their first job working at their favorite cookie store probably don't know that they're legally supposed to get off at 7 p.m. on a school night, or that they are not supposed to be operating that oven that their manager told them to operate. They're easily exploitable, and companies know that, and they take advantage of that. So if anyone out there is a minor who is working a job, just try to be aware of your rights as an employee. Do your research and figure out what the labor laws in your states are for people under the age of 18 working. And speak up for those rights if you're not being given them. It's also, again, I'm sure, not a Crumbl specific thing to be overworking and underpaying your employees while giving them no breaks and all that stuff that we went over earlier. But I still think it's super important to talk about in hopes that someday we see some sort of change here. Now look, if you're a big fan of Crumbl, that's totally fine, okay? I don't blame the consumer. I don't blame the people who like cookies for all of this shit that I just talked about. In the world we live in, it's really, really hard to avoid supporting immoral companies. I mean, fucking hell, my entire channel is basically me yapping about different sites and companies that I think did something wrong or shady. And don't get me wrong, it's definitely worth doing to try to avoid funding companies that you don't agree with their practices of. But look, I don't blame you for sometimes just forgetting about it for a minute and indulging, because it's genuinely like nearly impossible to avoid. Thanks to our capitalist society, it's basically just a fact of life and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, yeah, I got this laptop and this keyboard and this mouse and this mic stand and the camera and fucking everything in my office from Amazon. And yeah, I know that Amazon does some shady shit. I know that the drivers are super fucking overworked and like overly surveillanced, and some of them have to pee in like bottles and shit just to get by. I know that, and I know they probably get some of the same stuff from like the same shady, sketchy places from that Temu gets their stuff from. I'm aware, and I don't love Amazon as a company. That being said, what am I supposed to do? I can go to Walmart and get some of this stuff, but like, I know Walmart sucks too. There's no escaping it. Now look, I don't make videos to sit here and be like, never use this because it's bad, and if you use it, you're bad and I'll kill you. I'm not doing that. I just want you to be aware. Okay, I just want you to be aware of what these companies are doing. The more people are aware of these issues, the more we can vote people into power that will do the right things against it, or the more that we will be able to stand up or protest certain companies doing bad things or having illegal or immoral practices. In fact, most of the time, these companies, when they're trying to deploy these manipulative practices, it's pointed at the consumer. So if we make everyone aware of these manipulative practices, then we can actually enact change because the consumers will be aware at least of the manipulative practice. Or if the workers are aware, then they can kind of know a little bit how to avoid being exploited. Moral of the story is just try to stay informed on what the companies that you support are doing behind the scenes. But don't let it ruin your consumer experience, because it'll drive you crazy if you try to. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciated it. Be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. I really want to hit 100,000 subscribers in 2025. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, and I really want that freaking plaque, so I would really appreciate it. And if you didn't see part 1 of the Crumbl series, then go check it out. It's a banger video, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Go check it out. And thank you again to Incogni for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use my link in the description if you sign up for Incogni. All right, I'll see you guys next time.